In today's lesson, we look at how Magnus Carlsen calmly deals with the sharp fried liver attack. Instead of getting rattled by early tactics, he relies on solid development and accurate calculation to take control of the position. Let's see how the champion handles this dynamic line. 1 in this line, white plays knight to g5 and begins targeting the pawn on f7. Black has several choices, such as the Traxler counterattack, the knight takes e4 line, the prince counter gambit, or the standard main line. The issue is that these lines are extremely theoretical. For example, in the main line after bishop to b5, black usually plays pawn to c6 to defend the king, and from there the theory becomes very deep, with white having many possible continuations. Magnus Carlsen, however, chose a different and simpler idea. He defended his king by playing bishop to d7. At first glance, this move doesn't look special. It appears almost obvious. Yet historically, pawn to c6 has been the overwhelmingly popular move, treated as the main option for centuries. After reviewing the position, I found that both Stockfish and Analysis consider bishop to d7 just as strong, while being much easier to handle in practical play. 2. Here's a more broadly rewritten version. In this position, Carlsen, playing black, met white's move, queen to e2, which simultaneously defended the bishop and added extra pressure to the e5 pawn. Instead of reacting sharply, he simply developed with bishop to e7, a quiet move that also removes the possibility of white capturing on e5 with check. With the queen tied to the task of guarding the bishop, white can't freely take the pawn, making the pressure on e5 far less dangerous than it first appears. White chose to trade on d7, and here we can clearly see black's strategic idea in this opening. First, black exchanges white's active bishop, leaving white without any real attacking prospects. Second, the knight on g5 no longer poses a threat. Black's pawn structure fully covers everything, and the knight is now poorly placed. Black can easily drive it away later with pawn to h6, or even pawn to a4 if the knight retreats to f3. Meanwhile, the pawn on d5 is attacked twice, meaning black will likely win it back without difficulty. Black is also ready to castle on the queen side, creating an energetic and harmonious position. The best part is that none of this requires deep theoretical knowledge. Play bishop to d7, then pawn to h6, recapture the pawn, castle queenside, simple and effective. In the game, after this sequence, white played knight to c3, which is a natural developing move. A more ambitious choice, however, would have been to grab the undefended pawn on a5, and we can examine both possibilities. 3 from here, the familiar pattern continues for black. White developed with knight to c3, and black calmly removed the pawn on d5. After the trades in the center, the evaluation shifts noticeably. Surprisingly early in the game, black already holds the advantage. In fact, white's position is starting to show real signs of strain despite the game barely leaving the opening stage. Here's a broader, rephrased version. From the d5 square, black's queen instantly puts pressure on the loose pawn on g2, while the bishop on e7 simultaneously challenges the knight on g5. This theme comes up again and again in these lines. The knight on g5 is usually poorly placed, and black gains time by driving it around. Retreating is no easy task either. Each time the knight tries to fall back, black can push pawns forward, taking away key squares and forcing the knight all the way to g1, where it becomes completely ineffective. In the actual game, white avoided losing immediately by choosing a line that leads to a worse endgame. Still, it is remarkable how quickly black achieved a nearly winning position. White then played queen to f3, a kind of escape move that forces a queen trade. After the queens are exchanged, black remains clearly better thanks to superior development. Black is pressuring the weakened knight, the bishop is ready to activate and increase the pressure, the knight has strong jumping squares, while white's pieces remain poorly developed. 4 white still struggles to complete development, and later in the game Magnus Carlsen eventually won. The full game is long, so I won't go through every move here. What matters is the simple and effective plan black used to neutralize the fried liver attack. The move knight to c3 was what happened in the actual game, but let's look at a more ambitious option, queen takes e5. This is the most popular choice and appears very strong for white. They win a pawn, develop their queen, and everything seems perfectly safe. However, these positions are extremely tricky, and they often turn out to be surprisingly favorable for black. The central concept is that when black's knight captures the pawn on d5, it sets up a powerful tactical idea, the advance pawn to f6, which hits both the queen and the knight at once. This forces white to make a quick decision. Many opponents, thinking they're about to gain a huge advantage, grab the pawn on g7 to threaten the rook and pressure the f7 square, believing they're on the verge of a winning attack. But this confidence is misplaced. black simply castles on the queen side, and the real counterplay begins. If after castling on the queen side, black's development is nearly complete, while white's position remains poorly coordinated. White is moving the same two pieces repeatedly, and both of them are becoming liabilities. The knight on g7 is already under attack from the bishop, and black is ready to play rook to g8, putting the queen and knight on the same file and creating additional threats. It is actually very difficult for white to untangle. Despite this, white often believes they are winning. They capture the pawn on f7 with the knight, forking both of black's rooks and feeling confident after taking multiple pawns. But black calmly responds with bishop to f6, attacking the queen. Wherever the queen moves, the knight on f7 will be left undefended and can be captured. Even better, black first inserts the intermediate move rook to e8, delivering check. This forces white's king to move, permanently removing the right to castle. Once the king steps aside, black captures the knight on f7. Now black is up a full piece, has superior development, and has a far more active position. From here, converting the advantage is straightforward. Now let me walk you through a sample continuation that might appear from this position. You absolutely do not need to memorize any of this. The evaluation is already strongly in black's favor, but it helps demonstrate how the position can unfold and why black's ideas are so effective. Suppose white plays pawn to d3, which is a logical attempt to finally start developing pieces and stabilize the position. In response, black has a very strong and visually striking move, knight to c4. This brings the last inactive knight into the game and immediately creates new threats. One of those threats is the attack on the pawn at b2, which would open lines toward white's king and further disrupt white's coordination. At this point, white may look at the board and think, the knight on c4 is sitting on a square that is defended. Why not simply capture it? But this seemingly natural capture is actually a catastrophic mistake. If white takes the knight with the pawn, black replies with knight to c3, checkmate. This is a beautiful tactical finish. The knight delivers check, while the rook on d8 also gives check, creating an unstoppable double check. The king has no legal square to escape, and the game ends instantly. This mating pattern alone is a good reminder of how dangerous black's activity becomes once the queenside rook joins the attack. However, white is not forced to fall into this trap. Instead of capturing the knight, white has a much more resilient move, queen to g4. This creates a dual threat, attacking the black king and the knight on c4 simultaneously. It is a clever defensive resource that keeps white in the game a little longer. After black moves the king to a safe square, white can capture the knight with the queen, removing one of black's attacking pieces. At first glance, this may look like black has simply blundered the knight and allowed white to escape. But even here, the evaluation of the position remains firmly in black's favor. Black's pieces are far more active, white is still severely behind in development, and many tactical possibilities remain available. Even though white avoids immediate disaster, the overall position continues to be extremely unpleasant for them. This variation shows how quickly black's initiative can grow and how dangerous the position becomes for white when both development and king safety are neglected. Thanks for watching.